Welcome back, everybody, once again to TJ Talks the News. I am TJ here with you on this lovely, lovely morning, August 26th, 2021. And today I am going to be going over some news straight out of Missouri. I thought it would be interesting to see more local news stations, and especially local news stations that are not around my area. Just because I think that we may be consuming different. I don't know. I'm sure that they craft the news to meet their audience's needs and stuff. But let's go ahead and get to the news today, shall we? Pentagon reports explosion at Kabul airport. Early Thursday, the acting U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan said a threat to the area was imminent. So they've been kind of saying, like, hey, we know that ISIS is planning something. They're gonna try to attack the airport. And of course, that's where they're trying to evacuate everybody from. And it turns out like their intelligence assessments were correct. And we had an explosion this morning. Last I saw, 3 soldiers were injured. But I haven't heard much else about it. And, I'm like I said yesterday, I'm kind of holding off on passing too strong a judgments about what's happening over there right now. Besides the fact that it's a mistake that we're over there in the first place. It is kind of amazing to see, we've overwhelmingly Americans have wanted out of this war for a long time now. And then we see these images of the atrocities of war, right? This is what war brings. It brings stuff like this, these mass evacuations. It brings explosions and just lots of nasty stuff. We see the image of the guy jumping off the plane, and for some of us, our reaction isn't to think, oh my gosh, how terrible, let's never ever do this again. Instead, some of us, our reaction is to say, hey, that looks cool, we want more of this. Like, there are people out there now who really want to get back into a war in Afghanistan. And it's like, you guys, the reason this is happening is because we went there in the first place. So we stay there longer, it's not going to prevent this from happening again in the future. I don't know. So I told my son, I think the only way we really win over there, if you want to call it a win, is by dropping a nuclear bomb and just taking everything out. Because it's a region of the world that is just so incredibly difficult to hold militarily because of the terrain, but also it's not really a country. We call it Afghanistan, but the boundaries were drawn post-World War II by colonial powers, by imperial powers. And it's just this collection of disparate groups of these tribes, and we're trying to turn them into a country. It's not going to work. But it is kind of just insane to me to think like, okay, this is obviously terrible, therefore we go back and do more of it? What is the thought process there? And I would say the thought process is mainly just the little money signs, because for a lot of these people showing up on the news, they're making money off of these wars. Also, I just gotta say that I like this, the way that this is laid out. It's very clean. It's easy to see the individual stories. They are still trying to draw my attention to certain locations on the website. But this is what I remember news sites. Honestly, it's been a long time since I've been to like any just plain news site, like the homepage. So it was weird going to CNN the other day and be like, what the heck, man? There's just so much information on the page. Whereas this is very clean and easy to navigate. I like this. And in general, I do think that local news stations provide, maybe not better, I don't know. I think you're less likely to be bombarded with a bunch of sensationalist headlines and misleading reports and stuff. Maybe that's not true, especially because there's this trend now of a lot of local news stations and newspapers being bought out by these giant companies. There's one in California, and it's owned by some far-right lunatic, and they've bought out like a bunch of the newspapers now. And that's terrifying when you have, these companies controlling so much of the information that we consume. Which takes us back to, of course, Google the other day. Google as a search engine and um, how it chooses what to show you and stuff. All right, let's keep going. We have feature. These are our featured stories today. These are the areas in Missouri with the most COVID-19 cases among children. I did see in Tennessee now, something like 36% of all COVID cases are among children. Now that doesn't really tell us a lot. I mean, if there's 100 cases, then that's 36 kids that are sick, which is still 36 kids too many. But, um, it certainly seems like children are the ones being impacted by it, or they're being impacted by it more so than they were with the initial strain. And that may just be because they're the ones who are not vaccinated. Now, maybe it is that the strain affects children more. From what I understand, that we don't know a whole lot about Delta yet to really make a lot of these conclusions. I'm still kind of in the mind that we should be shutting down schools simply as a precautionary measure, but it doesn't seem like anybody has the political willpower to want to do that. So, I don't know. We did get our first got an email yesterday from my daughter's school saying that somebody had tested positive and they were going to do all the contact tracing and stuff. So we're waiting to hear if my daughter came into contact with that person, which she's going to school like in an hour, so they better get to us soon. COVID-19 booster shots. Who is eligible? When you should get yours? So they're now recommending booster shots. I know this is I think it's for the Pfizer and J&J maybe. And the booster shots do seem to be effective in terms of increasing your resistance to the Delta variant. From what I understand, it's supposed to be 6 months after your second shot. So if you got I think my wife got hers back in like March or April, so she's gonna be ready for her booster shot here coming up soon. St. Louis area schools announce mask policies. Meanwhile, governors like in Texas and in Florida and Montana, there's a few others, have started passing laws that basically ban any kind of vaccine mandate, mask mandate, anything like that. Which to me is just crazy. Some of the laws seem to apply only to the COVID vaccine, which means, your polio and your smallpox vaccines and all that stuff, measles, they're still getting those vaccines. Just the COVID vaccine they're going to ban. Because they're fucking idiots. But, so that's, it just trips me out sometimes, how you can be so very inconsistent. We don't want this vaccine, but we're gonna inject, all these other dozens of other vaccines. They don't know what's in those vaccines either. And we've been doing this for, I mean, the legal stuff goes all the way back to the early 20th century on vaccines. There's a Supreme Court case from 1905 where they decided, yes, the government absolutely has the right to mandate vaccines. It's about the greater good, about protecting the general welfare, right? And then that was reaffirmed in the 20s to apply to school children, and it was reaffirmed again, I think, in the 50s or the 60s. So there's much precedent for these vaccine mandates, and here we have states trying to ban them. And if you're gonna ban COVID, you have to ban the other ones, right? So it's like we're gonna see. Maybe we'll see smallpox return. Maybe we'll see polio. Maybe we'll see some of these really cool viruses that we've gotten rid of. That'll be exciting. All those images, right? People like the exciting images on their screens. Well, let's, There's that one image of the they're like twins. And I don't know if it's accurate or not. But you can see here, again, if you're watching, if you're listening, you can't see, but one of them was vaccinated and one of them was not. I don't know if they're twins or if they're just brothers or what. But these are the kinds of images we'll start to see again if Republicans get their way. You know, again, for them, it doesn't seem to be about. I mean, I'm talking generally here. Some of them it is about the vaccine and the safety of the vaccine, but for a lot of them it seems to be about this idea of freedom and stuff and how they should be free to not take the vaccine. And my idea is to just ship them all to Florida. If you live in Florida and you like the vaccine and you like the mandates and you're all that kind of stuff, we will pay you to move out of Florida. We will build you a nice fancy house wherever the hell you want in the rest of the US. So we take everybody out who doesn't want to be there. We ship all the people who don't want to be vaccinated or masked or anything down to Florida. We build a giant wall because apparently walls seem to work with Republicans when it comes to keeping people within their state or country boundaries. We build a wall around Florida, and then we lock the gate and we throw away the key, and they can live out their libertarian fantasies as climate change comes and wrecks the coast. That's my idea. I say that's what we do. Just ship them all to Florida. They can have their freedom there as they all catch COVID and smallpox and polio and stuff. Right now it is 85 degrees in Missouri. Well, good for you, Missouri. It's actually, I'm guessing it's actually pretty hot over there, especially for this time of year. Anheuser-Busch's new CEO on his top priority, St. Louis's role in the company's growth. I used to drink a lot of beer, and growing up, you buy the cheap beer, right? So it was often like Bud Light or Budweiser or Natty Ice or Natural Light kind of stuff. I don't drink beer. In fact, I don't drink at all anymore. But boy, does that beer just suck, man. Oh gosh, it's terrible. It's great for getting drunk and like just drinking all night, but it's just ugh. When I was drinking a lot more, I started. My favorite was IPAs. I like that strong, bitter flavor. It reminds me that I'm drinking alcohol. Having a fake COVID-19 vaccination card could mean big fines, prison time, which is just. First of all, I gotta say, I'm looking at my vaccine card right now. These seem like they would be so easy to counterfeit. It's just a piece of, I mean, it's just a regular piece of paper, basically. There's no like symbols, no nothing that would make it difficult to counterfeit, as far as I know. But the fact that people are paying for this, you can go and get a free vaccine, or you can pay. You know, I've seen everything from $20 up to $500 for one of these fake vaccine cards, and it's just insane to me. I guess it's better than taking the what is it, like a horse or a cow dewormer that people are taking to treat COVID. Oh man, having a fake. Okay, we just read that one. $20 million mansion in St. Charles County for sale. Anybody got $20 million laying around? It is insane. So I still am on my parents' phone plan or whatever, and I'm not even sure if that's why, but for some reason I constantly am getting text messages and phone calls from my parents, and I think it may be because my mom and I switched numbers at one point. But like every day I get 3 or 4 text messages. Mrs. Richmond, would you like to? Every day I get 3 and 4 text messages where it's like, hey, would you like to sell your house on so and so and so? It's insane, the housing market right now, and my parents probably could make a decent profit off of their house, maybe. Um, they're not going to sell it. I think their plan. They're too old. They don't want to move again. Um, but I think their plan was to always kind of pass the house down to us. South St. Louis County family tickling funny bones with skeleton displays. Anybody really big into like Halloween stuff? My aunt and uncle go like all out with the Halloween decorations, and they throw this massive party. I've only ever been to the party once, and it was when my my parents, I think, were still divorced at this time, because my parents split up at one point and they remarried. And so to kind of make sure I had like a fatherly influence in my life, my mom got me hanging out a lot more with my uncle, which was probably not a good idea because my uncle was always this kind of party animal. He's toned down now, but back then, this is when I was probably about 13 or so. I mean, these parties that they have are not for children. So my mom sends me to this Halloween party with my uncle, and they have like a margarita machine, and there's lots of very tipsy older people and stuff. But it was one of the greatest parties I've ever been to, just because of all the decorations and all the cool activities that they had set up. Um, I remember waking up in the morning though with this woman who was like 45. She's like one of my aunt's like best friends or whatever, sleeping next to me, and that was interesting. But yeah, okay. As far as I know, everybody just passed out, and I just happened to wake up next to her. But um, yeah, unfortunately, we don't do a lot here with my family. We decorate on the inside a little bit, and of course, the last year has been, last Halloween was we didn't do anything. Uh, I I'm trying to think. Like, I am not big into. I guess I am kind of into Christmas decorations, but I definitely enjoy the Halloween decorations a lot more. I've always been into like scary, spooky stuff, and not even scary, spooky stuff. All right, let's see. Jefferson County deputies still looking for suspect involved in machete assault. Charges issued. It always trips me out whenever I see one of these machete fights. I don't know. It also trips me out. I know my son was like, "Whoa, you can buy a machete here." We were at like Home Depot or something, and you could just walk down to your little corner store, buy this giant blade. Um, and they seem to be becoming more common. I don't know. I know that they're far more common in countries outside the U.S. where it's harder to acquire a firearm. So I don't know. Do we prefer the gunfights or do we prefer the machete fights? I think the machete fights are far more entertaining than the gunfights. And they tend to be a lot less lethal, too. So maybe we should stick with the machete fights. Let's see here. New Missouri Medicaid applications won't be reviewed until October. So if you haven't seen, the Democrats have passed their $3.5 trillion budget resolution, and one part of that is to expand the Affordable Care Act to cover new people. And here we see they also expanded it earlier with the stimulus package back in March or whatever. So that may have something to do with that. I still don't have access to health insurance. It was great. They passed it so you qualified for more tax breaks and stuff. And so when I went on, because usually it would be like $380 a month for me, which is like it's like a quarter of my paycheck. But uh, so they passed it, and I checked again, and I would pay $1 a month for health insurance, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Yes, please. But then when you read the fine print, it's like, oh, but because the only reason I qualified for the tax break was because I was unemployed. But I'm no longer unemployed. So I would have gotten this for like a month, I think, a month of coverage at $1, but then it would have jumped right back up to 380 or whatever. So it was like no point in me getting the health coverage, even though I really need to go see a doctor for like a dozen different things. The one thing with universal healthcare that I've seen is it really helps to the patient develop a strong relationship with the doctor. I talked about this, I think, a few episodes ago, about how I think everything comes down to relationships with, building strong relationships with people around you, with your community and stuff. But with healthcare, it's about building a strong relationship with your doctor. If your doctor knows you and you trust your doctor, you're far more likely to prevent, serious health problems. We would also be doing a lot better with the virus and with the vaccinations, because people would trust their doctors and would be more likely to take the vaccine. I think it's kind of a bummer that Democrats, they still don't seem to want to go for universal health care. I know that I and a lot of other people would benefit from it. Here's some Nation World. Well, that's weird. I've never seen. It's like a subheading for like the type of news. Nation World News. Usually it's just world news. Russia, at least 2 dead, 15 wounded in Kabul airport blast. This is all about the explosion. COVID-19 resurgence crimps spending, travel recovery. People are in such a hurry to, because it's hurting their bottom lines. And you know that's what it's all about. It's all about money. No, that's probably not true. I know that some people psychologically are really suffering because of the lockdown and the quarantines and stuff. For me, it's been the best like year of my life. As an introvert, telling me to like stay inside all day, I don't think my mental health has gotten better, my physical health has gotten better, everything has improved. I would love to be in lockdown for the rest of my life, I think. Not really. I mean, I still get lonely and stuff, but I have my kids and I have my wife and I have other family, and I have you all too to keep me company. That's just my personality. I don't know. I don't usually like people, which is odd because a lot of the choices I've made are like I'm a teacher. I'm all about spending time and helping people. But for the most part, I'm just a very solitary kind of person. And having to interact with others causes so much stress that it's unhealthy for me, I think. Um, except students in the classroom. I don't know. I feel so comfortable there, but anywhere else, I'm just like constantly on edge. Let's see here. U.S. jobless claims rise by 4,000 to 353,000. So things are still a little precarious for us as far as employment goes. Um, and I don't know, I feel like we're always, like, we're just, because we're in such a rush to reopen, we're never going to get it down because I feel like we need to just shut everything down for a month. Like I've said, it's too late for this now, but that's what we should have done. I feel like that's what Biden should have done on day one. It was probably too late by then, anyways. But I feel like we need to take some stricter measures to really get things under control. I mean, look at somewhere like New Zealand, where that's what they did, and they were able to do it. They got one COVID case. This was like a month ago, I think, because they went like 6 or 7 months without any cases, and then they got one, and they shut the whole thing down again. And it works. It works. They went 6, 7 months without it. Everybody was out doing their things, and of course they were still taking precautions. But I mean, it worked. It's a different country. It's a different culture, but maybe it could work here too. Let's see here. Visually impaired woman surprised with burial birth cake. Such a heartwarming video. We need to see more of that on the news. I do feel like maybe I should do like at least one episode where a week where I focus solely on positive stories, because the overwhelming negativity in news is certainly having an effect on our mental health. Uh, let's see here. Webster Groves freshman urges understanding for the new school year. Hannah Smith hopes controversy stays out of the classroom. Why? Okay, I gotta read this one because it's about education, so it's about me and the stuff that I do. We don't want the video. No, thank you. Let's see here. As students head back to class across our area, there's a little bit of nerves under those first day of school outfits. Today in St. Louis, Allie Corey caught up with 15-year-old Hannah Smith, who is starting her freshman year at Webster Groves High School after more than a year learning from home. There's definitely a lot of nerves, lots of tummy butterflies, because I'm going to be seeing people for like the first time in years, I guess. Like so many of the kids growing up in this pandemic, Hannah is eager to return to school. It's been a long time. I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little bit. So it's mainly about parents concerned for their children's health. So it is about the controversy of masks and vaccines and stuff, and whether or not that's going to be bleeding into our classrooms. I spoke about this, I think, a little bit last episode, how I was hesitant to engage the student when he brought up the vaccine conspiracies, because I could see it turning out very poorly, and I think you have to be a really talented instructor to be able to handle that kind of stuff well, and I'm not sure I am that talented. But on the other hand, I think the classroom is like the perfect place for those kinds of controversies, for people to maybe be able to reach some kind of resolution, maybe not a consensus, but at least for us to explore what the heck is going on. I think the vast majority of people disagree with me there. At least in my experience, like with the abortion topic, most teachers just say no. And I seem to be one of the few who are okay with inviting controversy into the classroom. Like I said, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that this year with the vaccine and stuff. I've never shut down a topic in my class before. I don't know if I could do it now, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see, I suppose. And it's not just this. There's also all the stuff with the critical race theory, which they seem to have maybe dropped now. They'll probably bring it back once they get closer to midterms. It really is just this kind of fear tactic. I love... Nobody knew what the heck CRT was. And all of a sudden, Republicans start talking about it. And you actually have the guy who kind of started the whole thing on Twitter basically explaining what his strategy was to, again, turn it into a boogeyman so that anytime somebody mentions the phrase critical race theory, Republicans are just up in arms. It's, psychology 101. And to see the guy admit it on Twitter that this was his plan was pretty insane. But it's just I do this podcast for my dad, and they had an expert on not too long ago who talked about critical race theory and what it is and what it actually looks like in the classroom and stuff. And yeah, it was an interesting video. I may have to link to it. I'm not sure. Anyways, you guys, I think that's going to be it from me for today. Thanks again for joining me on this lovely, lovely August morning. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.